Welcome back for team number 11 of 12 teams in 12 days. I'm Bobby Broyles here with my guy, Tim McDonald. Today we're breaking down Villanova, a program under the direction of a new head coach for the first time since 1985 after Mark Ferrante takes over for Andy Talley. Some big shoes to fill, but it helps welcoming back 15 starters from a second-round playoff team a year ago.
Absolutely, and plenty of similarities between other new head coaches that we've talked about in this preview series coming into year one. But at the same time, there are even more, if not better, differences for this team moving forward, and isn't a new face for Villanova. It's not a guy who was hired from another program, and it's not a whole lot of staff changeover as well. Mark Ferrante is a guy who's been around the program, played quarterback for Andy Talley back in the 80s. I won't tell you when, but back in the 80s at St. Lawrence University in upstate New York. He was the quarterback for Andy Talley and then joined him and has been on the staff for 30 years, including the last 18 as an assistant head coach. So when you talk with Coach Ferrante and you learn about his passion for the program, his knowledge of the program, and for the Wildcats in general, it's clear and it's also very obvious that he's earned this spot to lead and take over this team. Villanova, a year ago, 9-4, a very solid season overall, 6-2 in league play with losses to Richmond and JMU. Open up the playoffs. Remember, they beat St. Francis by 10 points at home in the first round of the playoffs and lost a heartbreaker in a very close game against a tremendous team in South Dakota State on the road. That was by a late field goal. Remember, it snowed a little bit, and unfortunately, that was Andy Talley's last game. But you take away, there's a lot of positives heading into 2017 because of the way how 2016 ended. Out of all the offenses we've talked about so far, I think it's safe to say sometimes there's a lot of great quarterbacks, but we've talked a lot so far about teams that bring back so many pieces. I don't know if there's another team like Nova that brings back as many key guys. And 9, in fact, on offense, led by Zach Bednarczyk at quarterback. You talk about running back Aaron Forbes, tight end Ryan Bell, wide receiver Torres Phillips, and center Matt Donahue, just to name a few of those starters coming back. All of those guys have played significant snaps. 5th in scoring, 3rd in rushing, and 4th in total offense a year ago. And the crazy thing to think about is Zach Bednarczyk is still developing as the starter, too. That wasn't his 3rd or 4th year starting. That was his first true season starting, 19 touchdowns passing, and was also 2nd behind Forbes on the team with 539 rushing yards. His progression only adds to the upside for the offense. And Bell, to me, quietly became the best kept secret at the end of last year for this Villanova team, finished with 7 touchdowns, and in the latter half of the year, whether it was the playoffs, every time he was coming up with the catches for a touchdown and can prove, I think, to be one of the best tight ends in this conference if he has that same type of production. It's fair to expect the same production on offense this fall, especially if Nova can maintain its bread and butter of a well-balanced run and passing team. Every time we think of a Villanova team that has success, it's a team that is not going to beat you just one way. They're going to beat you both ways.
The new leader of the Wildcats took some time at Media Day to speak with us about the offense and the optimism for this unit if it can stay healthy. Take a listen.
The key for us is to go in there and get to work, gel. We do have 9 starters back on offense. We lost 2 linemen, so the bulk of our skill positions are back. And as everyone knows, if you have your quarterback back and he's a good player and he's an established player, then that's the best place to start with. So hopefully we can keep Zach healthy because we've lived through that history as well. We were in a very similar position just 2 short seasons ago. We had very high expectations coming off of the 14th season with John Robertson coming right off of winning the Walter Payton Award. So I think we were probably even ranked higher than we are here today. And then John went down in the 3rd game, and a couple of our linemen went down and some of our safeties. So high expectation season became a 6-5 finish. So the key for us always is at our level, FCS level, but also at Villanova, is to try to stay healthy, keep all the players on the field as long as we can. And if we do that, I think we have a pretty good chance to win some games.
A recent surge in defense for Villanova has seen one of the better units, not just in the conference, but across FCS football. 6 starters returned to this unit, along with senior safety Rob Roll, who was named the league's CAA preseason Defensive Player of the Year.
Named it for a reason. Statistically speaking, Villanova is the #1 team in the FCS for scoring defense, allowing 15 points per game. Rush defense was 1st in the CAA and 4th nationally, 87 yards allowed per game. Most points allowed, think back to 2016, in a single contest last year was 28, and that was in the opener versus Pitt. At many times did we see this defense step up, and maybe that led to so much success for the offense. But, yes, you need to replace Austin Calitro, you need to replace Tano Passignon, but you start with Roll and you start with Malik Reeves holding down the secondary for now. Rob Roll led the conference last year with 7 picks and scored 2 defensive touchdowns. And don't forget about leading tacklers who are back, Jeff Steve and Ed Shockley. They're both back at linebacker and both finished with 86 tackles and combined for 19 for loss. Witnessed many times last year the control of the defense directly related to the tempo and points for the offense and made their job that much easier. How many times did we see a game that started close and all of a sudden was broken wide open because of that stingy play of defense? And another coach who's been on the staff for a while now and a guy who's familiar around CAA football, Joe Trainer, takes over the defensive coordinator spot. So the critical pieces are back and ready to maintain the attitude of a premier unit. How do all of those guys take their games to another level, and then some with 6 starters returning? The numbers and the reputation from 2016 are great, and they're worthy, and it's nice to talk about, but now it's time to show and go again with a new season.
Here is Coach Ferrante on his defense and the key leaders guiding this group this year.
Well, we selected, and when I say we, the team selected 4 captains for this year's team, and we selected that at the end of spring practice. Matt Donahue, our starting center, and the other 3 captains came from defense, and 1 at each level. Ricky Young, our nose guard, Ed Shockley, our linebacker, and Rob Quaddy Roll, our defensive back. So it seems to be that our leadership, at least in the players' eyes, is on the defensive side of the ball, which is a good thing. The loss, I think the biggest key losses, as we already stated, are the up front. I think we'll have to, find a way to replace those defensive ends, probably more by committee. We don't have a Tano Passigno in our program currently, but I think, and you rotate defensive players, especially defensive linemen, through all the time. So I think we'll still have a solid defense. It's going to be a very similar defense. We're not changing what we're doing, even though defensive coordinator Billy Crocker left to go to Connecticut. Joe Trainer is now our defensive coordinator, and he's been with us for the last number of seasons. So we're running the same defense, but I think it'll be a little different just because we graduated some really good players, and we're going to have a different guy calling the defenses from play to play. So, but we still have a good nucleus coming back there as well with 7 starters.
With all the expectations of succeeding Andy Talley along with a preseason top 10 ranking, what stands out to you right away before the start of an important year for the Wildcats?
It is a critical year, and to shy away from that I think would be foolish, but consistency, and consistency, if I might start. And that sounds weird, I know, talking about Villanova, a team going to the playoffs last year, a team with 9 wins, but on both sides of the ball, it's picking up right where this team left off at the end of 2016. And again, it sounds strange, but you always felt like last year Villanova came that close down the stretch and just needed one more stop, one more final push to break through. We all understand the important aspects that have the potential to make this offense good again. We know what needs to be done and what can be kept up again to make the defense great again, but the style and identity of the program, if it remains the same like many believe and like we know it can have, the key is finding the best recipe to put it all together again. Clearly easier said than done, but when you have a new coach who's been with the program, I think that's only going to benefit. Out of the gates, the schedule is stacked against Villanova. I mean, let's make that clear. 4 of the first 5 games are on the road. The first 2 are closer to home, but still at Lehigh to start, a very good team out of the Patriot League, at Temple the next week. Again, still in the same state, but still away from home. Then you come home finally to play Lafayette before opening conference play with UAlbany and Towson to close out September. Right after that, the Wildcats welcome Maine to Philly before heading to JMU in Week 7, which, if they don't look ahead, that game could potentially have huge consequences across this conference. And I won't say the latter half of the schedule is easy by any means, but getting Richmond and Delaware at home only adds to that when you think of the possibilities down the stretch. It all depends on playing early conference games on the road. How do they play? How do they adjust? And if they can pass those tests without looking ahead, I think Villanova will be fine. And let's not forget, Talley is also serving this year as Emerson's head coach as well, which, unlike many other programs in this country, hands down. I mean, if Coach Ferrante wants to go down the hall, he's a couple doors down. Knock on Andy Talley's door. He's literally right down the hallway. So anytime there's trouble, anytime there's concerns, Coach Talley is going to be there. So the impact that he's had on the program, he might not be the head coach, but he's still there. He's still right down the hall from Coach Ferrante, which I think is kind of funny, but it's also kind of awesome to think about moving forward.
It is. You knew Coach Talley wasn't going to stay away.
Yeah,
He might be retired, but he's still there. Villanova begins the year at defending Patriot League champion Lehigh on Saturday, September the 2nd at 12:30 p.m.
And be sure to head over to CAAfootball.com now for more Nova coverage, and check us out on social using the hashtag CAAFB for behind-the-scenes content throughout the day, including our featured segment with senior Rob Roll.
And then there was one. Tim and I return tomorrow for the final preview of our series looking at the tribe of William and Mary. Enjoy the rest of your day.